Hello,
Hello.
everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat, our Sunday night shit show. How are you, Pat?
I am actually doing pretty good today.
Yeah.
I'm not even faking the happy. It's a
Okay.
real,
That's
I bought
amazing. Tell me why.
a
I'm going to bring you
mystery.
down.
Yeah, well, the show will. It'll be depressing, which is the opposite of our intent. But I bought a random beer, Dankster Evil, and it's a delicious double IPA. You can't see the label because it's green screen disappearing it. And I want to show you something here. When I want my next beer, I just lean over a little bit.
Shut up. You fixed
Because I reversed the door on my fridge and we're ready to go. Let's do this.
Oh my God. No wonder you're happy. That's so exciting.
That's dedication. And on top of that, my cat is over here in her new toy called the box. There's a box, that's Amazon box that she's just chilling in all the time. And she's leaving me alone a little more than normal. She loves that box.
Does she pee on it?
No, she saves that from the couch and me still. Excellent. Of today. That's 0 days without peeing on me.
Oh, geez.
As the sign says, tap the sign.
Crazy. But, I'm so sorry, but that's very cool. You know, it's so funny. All those memes. We used to have two little kitties, Stanley and Buddha, and you know, it was always the boxes and the wrapping paper, and never the actual thing we might, you know, get them as a present. It's so funny.
Oh yeah. I mean, I bought expensive toys, but she likes the cheapest things that come in a kit. Either when you buy any toy, they give you these bonus little.
Yeah.
Because they have a little teeny rattle in them, and then so those are the alive toys, and the other ones that it costs like $10. I have one that's a remote control mouse. Doesn't give a shit about
none
any
of it.
Those
just the
toys.
box.
Yeah.
Kim, I love that. She's outside walking and watching our show. Thank you. That's dedication. We appreciate that. That's huge.
This is important.
That is, I know. That was actually the first thing I saw, and I put it up there. That is so cool. I have to, like, whatever I bring into the office for the show, it's what I'm stuck with. So I always make sure I have plenty. I have like 3 bottles of wine just in case we go long. Yeah. Little snack in case I get hungry. But I would love to have, you know what? Maybe I need a mini fridge in here. I need a mini fridge and a
show needs a mini fridge. Like and subscribe, folks. The show needs a mini fridge.
Can you imagine? Oh my God, no. Yeah. All right. So I missed you. It's been a week. We have not skipped a show in a while. And our last show, it was so great to have Stephen Sumler on. And I do just have to say, not only was he quoted in the New York Times 2 days later, but then Breaking Points did a whole thing and they quoted him also. And so we just want to say Stephen Sumler got the Punch Up Pod bump.
The Punch Up Pod bump. I like it. I think we could we'll put some thought in that and name it something like the Punch Up Pod. Like there's a punch thing in there that we can work on the bump a little bit.
Somehow. Yeah, the bump, the Punch Up. Yeah, but anyway,
pup up. He got pup upped.
He got pupped up. Anyway, I thought that was very cool for him. He does such amazing work. It was fantastic having him on, and I'm so happy that more and more people are discovering his work. So that is
absolutely. Please follow him and share his stuff because he's on point with it.
He's really fantastic. As always, we want to thank our Punch Up Pod heroes and sheroes. You guys are really amazing. Thank you for supporting the show, the shows. It means so much to both of us. So thank you a lot. Thank you. I'm going to do this stuff to get it out of the way. Pat's favorite part. Please make sure to like and subscribe and smash that notification bell.
Punch it up.
Or
something.
Yeah.
The double IPAs are treating me well today. I'm happy.
I like it. Yeah, I know. I've barely eaten today, so even just I feel like my mom. That my first sip of wine, I'm like, oh, that went right to my head. That's good. Okay. So I don't know. Do we start with our cheers? Do we just? What do you want to do? How do you want to get into all this?
Let's do our cheers.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, I think probably most of you all probably follow her, Basan. Oh God, now I'm going to get her name
Peabody
wrong. She just won the Peabody Award. She is the Palestinian journalist who starts every video feed of hers. And now I'll get this wrong also. Hi, it's Basan and from Gaza, and I am alive. Which like makes me want to cry every time, because for God's sakes, you should not have to say that every day. But she does amazing work. And this is her accepting her award. And as always, is just so lovely and big-hearted and generous. So here she is.
Hey everyone, this is Bisam from Gaza, Rafah. I'm still alive, alhamdulillah. And this is a very important event, so allow me please to speak in my native language. الاعتراف بجهود الصحفيين والصحفيات في هذا الوقت مهم جدا بالنسبة لي. هو بيعيد ترتيب كل الأمور أمام العالم. ففي الوقت اللي الاحتلال بيقتل فينا، في الصحفيين، في الأطباء، في الكوادر العاملة في الميدان، في المدنيين، على أساس إنه إحنا بنية تحتية للإرهاب، نظهر إحنا كناس بس بتوثق الإبادة اللي بتصير بحق شعبها وبتنقل المآسي لكل العالم. وما بعتقد ولا أي واحد في العالم بيعتقد إنه الإرهابي هو اللي بيخلي صوت شعبه مسموع. الإرهابي هو اللي بيعمل الإبادة، اللي بيدعم الإبادة، اللي بيقف جنب الإبادة، اللي بيصمت عن الإبادة، واللي بينتصر للإبادة. الانتصار لقضية الشعب الفلسطيني ولا عمره بحياته كان انتصار فقط لفلسطين، بل هو انتصار لقضية الإنسانية. فلسطين زي الشمس ما بتتغطى بكربال، والحق لابد أن يعود لأصحابه يوما ما. أول وأهم أدوات الاستعمار هو تفريق البشر وزرع الصراعات بينهم، لحتى ولا عمرنا بحياتنا ننتصر لبعض. وإحنا الآن بندمر أحد أهم أدوات الاستعمار وبنوقف لبعض في كل مكان بالعالم. عشان هيك أنا بهدي هاي الجائزة لكل الطلاب في الجامعات وفي المظاهرات، لكل الناس اللي بالشارع، لكل الناس اللي ببيوتها في المقاطعة وفي الإضراب، لكل الناس حول العالم باختلاف أديانهم، ألوانهم، أعراقهم، أجناسهم، باختلاف كل شيء هم فيه، ولكن بتشابههم في شغلة واحدة، في مطالبهم بفلسطين حرة. انتوا بتستحقوا هاي الجائزة وإحنا كمان. وبيوم من الأيام رح توقف هالإبادة ورح تصير فلسطين حرة، ورح نستقبلكم هان على أرض غزة. كلياتكم أرض غزة بتوسع الكل. شكرا كثير لكم على هاي الجائزة وعلى مساعدتنا دائما وعلى الوقوف بجنبنا والاستمرار في الوقوف بجنبنا لحد الوصول لمطالبنا: وقف الإبادة، وقف إطلاق النار، وفلسطين حرة. هاي الجائزة هي لكل أصوات وأحرار العالم بداخل فلسطين وخارجها. إحنا رح نضل متمسكين بأرضنا وبننقل لكم الحقيقة، وإنتم رح تضلوا بالشارع بتنادوا بفلسطين حرة. فلسطين حرة، فلسطين حرة، فلسطين لن تكون إلا حرة.
She's just amazing. And, you know, I know there's been, after Motaz left Gaza, and, you know, people are pushed into these situations through no desire of their own, and then pushed up to be like superheroes. And then they make one statement that upsets somebody, and then people can't wait to tear them down. And I just hope that we all just reserve some grace, because nobody should be having to suffer through what these people are suffering through, and having to document your own genocide is just unfathomable. So
not to be depressing about this, but her intro might not be there one day soon. This person we watched all the time, like that's the trajectory we're on and allowing to happen. So
yeah. So cheers. And I hope she does not have to continue doing this fantastic work, but as she does it, you know, cheers, cheers. That was, it's hard to, I knew I could get you to not just continue being in a happy mood.
You killed my happy.
Challenge accepted.
You did not, because we can still just spin the wheel and
look at that.
Look at that. Happy.
All right, here we go. What a transition. And you know, Pat, are you not doing the shots? Are you just drinking a little, you're chugging a little harder?
You're frozen too. Perfect time. Oh, you unfroze.
Oh,
yeah, I'm just extra chugging, because
all right,
I don't do shots.
I'm gonna extra chug too, because last time I think we ended up doing like 7, and that's a lot on this this old person's belly. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, baby.
That's hilarious.
You are good at this.
I wonder if we just remove it for today, since we're not doing the shots, and we just keep drinking, which I will continue to drink, I promise. All right, there we go. And I'm leaving it, right? We have more?
Yeah, we have one more we show.
Yeah.
I actually have a whole archive, but we have two.
Look at that. Here. Look at that. Oh my God.
Have a look at these two, would you? Two icons of the Australian bush just curled up together, living their best lives. Hey, Rocco? What do you reckon, Violet? Hey, Rocco's in a milk coma. Violet's just checking in. Are you alright, mate? I think you spilled a bit here on your arm. Hey, look at your little wing nuts. The size of your ears compared to little Rocco's.
That is crazy cute. Where did you go?
I have no idea.
There we go. That's very cute, Pat. You got us right back into a happy spot.
I mean,
just a little bit of time.
A wombat and a kangaroo, baby.
I'm glad
kangaroo,
you said that was
and a
wombat.
rabbit,
yeah,
and a
little
monkey
chimpanzee or something. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Sharing a carrot. Come on, that's the cutest.
Should we start the show?
We should start the show
with what do we do? We're jumping into the deep dive, right?
Deep dive, yeah. Let's do it.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
U.S. police are training in...
Wait, sorry, we're just not setting anything up. I thought there was an intro we were going to talk. We did not do a dress rehearsal here. We don't want to set anything up. We're just going to go right into it.
Okay, set it up.
I just feel like I need to say something. I don't like the silences. I know everybody understands why we're doing this, but I do just feel like, as we always talk about how everything is intersectional and whatever happens over there comes back here, and the way they treat us here, or the disregard for humanity, I guess I really didn't need to set this up.
Well, it's kind of stark just jumping into this thing. So yeah, I mean, we're covering Cop City, and the point of this segment is really, it's Cop City, but also the intersection with Israel and how these things cross paths, and why we should all be fighting for Cop City to be abolished. It's not just Cop City, Atlanta. It's Cop City all across the United States.
69 planned so far across our country. 69.
Yeah, and they're being built as we speak, and they're mega $1 million complexes. And
they starve city funding for,
right.
They starve cities of their libraries, like Mayor Adams, or their schools, so they can put this money into building Cop City. So, and largely
by lying to the public about crime rates and the need for these protective measures,
right? Yeah,
it's not needed. This money should go other places. We should be defunding the police first off, but
100%. Or abolish. But also, I do think, it's good, as we know, like, defund the police. When you just say the slogan, people have a problem with that because it feels anti-police. But whenever it's been broken down to what the policies would be, like actually to invest that money in social programs, and
the public supports it completely.
Yeah, like 100%. So I know we all know this. I just felt like we needed to set it up a little
probably
bit.
Needed to set up.
Go in there. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to go back to my drink, and we can.
Well, I'm going to look in my fridge and just think about my next drink.
Okay, here we go.
U.S. police are training in Israel, and that's something every American should be concerned about. As protests sweep across the U.S., it's becoming increasingly clear that law enforcement has become more militarized, treating the people they're supposed to serve and protect as a hostile foreign population. Part of the reason why is that since the 90s, and especially after 9/11, U.S. law enforcement, including police departments, the FBI, CIA, and immigration officials, have been trained by Israeli agents.
These exchange programs are exacerbating the violence in both places and lifting up the Israeli occupation as a global gold standard for policing.
And communities of color in the U.S. are disproportionately paying the price.
Police, since its origins, have been a racist and brutalizing body. But through time, their efforts of brutalization have taken on a new character. That new character is police exchanges.
Hey everyone, I'm Dina, and as a Palestinian-American journalist who's reported from the occupied West Bank... Put the camera down. Okay. I've witnessed firsthand how Israel routinely targets unarmed Palestinians with force as part of its decades-long illegal military occupation of Palestinian land. I've also seen the militarized U.S. response to peaceful protesters in places like Standing Rock. And in this historic moment of uprisings in the U.S., the parallels between how American and Israeli forces crack down on civilians are more glaring than ever. So why is U.S. law enforcement receiving training from Israel, a flagrant human rights offender? And what does it mean for people on the ground? Now, it's important to keep in mind that the U.S. police and military have historically brutalized communities of color and repressed movements for justice well before the existence of Israel. But now they're building on that by learning from a state that has mastered racial profiling, crowd control, and surveillance. To understand why these trainings are so problematic, you first need some background about how Israel systematically dehumanizes the Palestinian population it completely controls. Israel's creation in 1948 enshrined a nationalist policy of Jewish Israeli supremacy at the expense of the native Palestinian population, most of whom were forced to flee their homes, becoming permanent refugees. In 1967, Israel began its repressive military occupation of what remained of Palestinian land, subjugating the entire Palestinian population, denying them the rights of citizenship, and crushing any dissent against its policies. Since then, Israeli forces have routinely fired tear gas, skunk water, rubber-coated steel bullets, and even live ammunition at unarmed protesters. So this is a state that violently controls and suppresses the rights of an occupied people. And U.S. police are learning its tactics to use against American citizens. Thousands of law enforcement officials from all corners of the country have traveled to Israel to learn police strategies and exchange tactics. These trips became increasingly common after 9/11 as pro-Israel groups used the so-called War on Terror as an opportunity to push for a closer, unconditional alliance with Israel, which had marketed itself as the world's leading counterterrorism expert.
On these trips, high-ranking U.S. officials are visiting Israeli checkpoints and prisons, places where human rights groups all over the world have documented Israeli discrimination and repression and torture and killing of Palestinians.
I spoke to Stephanie Fox from the Jewish Voice for Peace. Her organization was part of a campaign called Deadly Exchange, which outlines the dangerous consequences of U.S. police trainings in Israel.
Why do you think Israel is so attractive to U.S. law enforcement agencies?
U.S. policing has always been both about enacting a war on Black and brown communities in the U.S. and around the world. So I think that the two being both rooted in racism and state violence, there's a real natural attraction and a desire to trade tactics.
So who runs these exchanges? They're organized by pro-Israel groups like the Anti-Defamation League, which calls itself the world's leading anti-hate organization. The trips are funded privately as well as through grants from the Israeli and U.S. governments, including the Justice Department. The ADL boasts that they've trained more than 15,000 law enforcement professionals and have sent more than 200 high-ranking U.S. officials to Israel. And some officers fresh off these trips have high praise.
This was an outstanding experience, something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
You've obviously given us a lot to think about, a lot of best practices.
And this is, in fact, the finest training initiative that I've ever been a participant in.
But we've seen the ramifications of these trainings here in the U.S., with police departments treating American citizens who are exercising their constitutional right to protest as though they're under occupation, especially communities of color. Take Ferguson, Missouri, for example. After the 2014 police killing of Michael Brown, the officers' response to protesters mirrored some of the tactics used by Israeli forces against Palestinians, which civil rights icon Angela Davis has drawn attention to.
The tear gas that was being used in occupied Palestine was the same tear gas that was being used in Ferguson.
And she's right. Officers in Ferguson used the same U.S. manufactured tear gas and flashbang devices to disperse crowds that Israeli forces regularly use against Palestinians. But that's not all. In 2011, the sheriff of St. Louis County, where Ferguson is located, traveled to Israel on one of the ADL-sponsored police exchange trips. And then, 3 years after the Ferguson uprisings, which catapulted the Black Lives Matter movement to the international stage, the city's police chief also traveled to Israel for training. He said he was blessed to be part of the exchange. And throughout all of this, Palestinians have recognized the shared struggle, even tweeting support and tips to American protesters. But Ferguson is just one example. Other cities and counties where officers have received Israeli training later became the sites of high-profile police killings. That includes Hennepin County, home to Minneapolis, where George Floyd was killed by police, and Atlanta, where Rayshard Brooks was fatally shot by an officer. And who could forget the militarized response to protesters in Washington, D.C. after the death of George Floyd? Officers from several agencies, including the U.S. Park Police, fired on protesters with tear gas and flashbangs. And it turns out that many officers from D.C. traveled to Israel for training, including the U.S. Park Police chief and a police commander. And then there's surveillance. Israel's massive
So sorry, I just want to stop it for a second so we can just talk about a couple things, which is the training with the IDF, which has been explicitly denounced by the ACLU. And they've been doing this now for years, as this journalist is showing. But the two parts are the militarization of the police, which is all financial, not all financial. It is one part financial, right? Like, what do you do with all of those weapons? You need to then buy it from the Pentagon, and so it's like a money laundering scheme, right? It's like, yeah.
But you also have to use them to justify them, because your budget, right. every budget in America in every department depends on saying, we need this much money last year, we use these utilities, we need more next year. That's the plea. So these cops are going to use these tanks, they're going to use these anti-human artillery, rubber
right.
bullets, everything they can, and they have been.
Yeah.
And crime is not going up. This
no,
is the thing.
But not because of that. Like
right.
That is the thing I really want to make. I mean, I know we all, but like, to extricate that from it, because this has not helped solve crimes at all. We know that I think cops solve like 2% of crimes. We know that crime is at, I think, a 40 or 50-year low, just because I know this is a popular one, but U.S. violent and property crime rates have plunged since, 32 years, 34 years, have plunged since the 1990s, whether it's violent crime, whether it's property crimes, it's reduced. So this thing of pushing the crime narrative, it helps police departments get bigger budgets. And we know that a huge amount of their budget is used to fight not qualified immunity. It's to fight when they are being brought forth in civil lawsuits. So the money for cops goes up, the killing of civilians goes up. That's a direct line, right? For the second year in a row. So this was last year.
Yeah.
No, this was this year.
Police budget, more killings.
Yeah. Biden increases police funding and militarization, and it's a new high for cops killing us. So this is what Biden's budget for police hiring looks like versus in 23 through 27. Good luck. I guess that's the Democrats' Project 2025. Apparently we have one. Anyway, but like, look at the huge increase over all of the his predecessors from the previous decade, and then this shows like the amount of spending for each city of these major cities, Oakland, Chicago, Minneapolis, Houston, Orlando, of their city's total budget. It's almost, I mean, I actually thought Los Angeles was much higher. What year is this from? I can't remember, but you know, it can be as much as 40% of the budget. So you look at that versus the military spending in other countries. So of course our military spending is more than anybody else's because we're the good guys, the rule and order people, then China, and then our police force before all the other military, you know, the countries that spend on their own militaries, our police force gets more money than all these countries' military budget. And so then the other thing is labeling people terrorism. And that happened like right at the beginning of the Biden administration. And of course, Trump does the same. But you remember that whole list of domestic violent extremists? It was Antifa. It was,
they loved getting Antifa in there.
Yeah. Anti-capitalists. It was climate protectors. So when you label people terrorists, you then need a military, police to fight against communities they should be serving.
Well, and if you ever broke down any of the data they have on terrorist actions and took out property damage as terrorism, I mean, sure, it's a crime, but if it doesn't involve a human life, I don't fucking care.
Yeah,
like I won't care at all.
Yeah,
if it's just a building for some shitbags.
100%, and especially because all of the roots of peaceful protests are always taken away from us anyway, right? Like,
right, and that is that. Yeah. But that's ultimately the point of Cop City, is taking away peaceful protests, because what they're doing is training them how to go into a peaceful protest, make it violent, and then end that violence.
Yeah.
They bring the violence.
Yeah.
To end it. Because then they can justify further violence, further tanks, further spending, further everything, and suppress speech. And, you know, historically, and I like that they connect this, and we'll show some other videos later that are also connected, but, you know, it's black and brown speech that's more silenced than white speech.
Always. Even just, you know, I don't know if you saw, but Columbia University, the students that had been charged, they were all, I think that their charges were dropped. And they said they didn't want to, they refused to allow that to happen until the City University of New York students' charges were also dropped. And there was a lot of concern that, you know, at this fancy Ivy school, their charges were misdemeanors, whereas at CUNY, they were more amped up, you know? So yes, it is always like that. Yeah. All right. Sorry. It's just like a few more minutes of this one.
The surveillance system has inspired U.S. officials, so much so that after a former police chief visited Israel in 2008, his city adopted its techniques.
Our Video Integration Center in downtown Atlanta is modeled after the Command and Control Center I saw in the old city of Jerusalem.
Atlanta has installed over 10,000 surveillance cameras, which have raised serious privacy concerns. But to really get a sense of Israeli inspiration, look no further than New York City. After 9/11, the NYPD and the CIA created a sprawling covert spying operation that surveilled and infiltrated mosques and Muslim neighborhoods in the New York City area. This led to widespread and unprecedented profiling of the region's Muslim communities. A police official told the Associated Press that the program was modeled in part off of how Israelis spy on Palestinians in the West Bank. That program was heavily scrutinized in the US, but widespread surveillance of citizens continues today. During recent protests, US officials surveilled demonstrations in 15 cities using drones and helicopters. They've recorded almost 300 hours of footage, which federal agencies and local police departments across the country can access. But it's not just the US that's learning and implementing new strategies at home. In 2016, Israel copied New York City's highly controversial and racist police policy of stop and frisk. The Israeli version primarily targeted young Palestinian men who were detained and searched without probable cause. All that said, a few communities have stood up to these police exchanges and won. In 2018, Durham, North Carolina became the first US city to ban its police from training in Israel. I spoke to Ajamu Dillahunt, a student and activist with Black Youth Project 100 who campaigned to make this happen.
I saw the interconnectedness between Black and Palestinian struggles. Because the United States and the state of Israel continue to strengthen their relationship, I think oppressed people within both of those places must also strengthen our relationship.
In 2014, the NAACP had called the Durham Police Department a broken system in need of repair due to a troubling pattern of racial profiling and police brutality. And guess what? The department also had a history of training in Israel. The current police chief had previously headed Atlanta's Israel Police Exchange program during her time with that department, so activists wanted to stop her from doing the same thing in Durham. Other communities have also successfully put an end to these trainings, including Northampton, Massachusetts, and the state of Vermont. But Ajamu says even though the win in Durham was exciting, racist policing isn't over.
So while we got a major victory, that we really have to look at the struggle to end the exchanges as part of a broader struggle to build a society where police are no longer necessary. And I hope this current period of rebellion represents a new era of Black and Palestinian solidarity.
Israel's occupation is illegal under international law and is premised on denying basic rights to the millions of Palestinians that Israeli forces control. Is that who we want American police, who are already in need of so much improvement, to be learning from? What do you guys think about U.S. police being trained in Israel? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to check out AJ Plus's continuing coverage of Black Lives Matter protests and the uprisings against police brutality.
AJ Plus has been such a mainstay for me recently. I'm so grateful to the work they do and all of these different videos. And I saw, well, first of all, Kimmy, thank you for becoming a new member. I think you already were a member, but thank you. And also, I saw your comment that like it makes you scared to go to protests. And that is the chilling effect. That's like one of the many effects that they want to have happen is to make people feel uncomfortable and scared, you know?
And the obvious thing here is that you've got these cops trained by Israeli police with their tactics, but they're trained by the Israeli police and they're protecting allegedly a protest that involves Israel. So which side do you think they're going to lean on this? You know, naturally they're authoritarian, so that they're going to be brutalizing the Palestinian supporters, but they're literally trained by the group that's on the other side of the majority of people at all these protests.
Yeah. So they're trained by them. They also are trained to see Palestinians as terrorists, which is, you know, every accusation is an admission or confession. And so then to see them go to those lengths against like our students who are protesting a genocide to protect the right to genocide. Like it is so foul.
Well, but you're right. It's because they've been trained by people who've dehumanized these Palestinian peoples to think that these are naive college kids at best or
Hamas lovers.
Just Hamas lovers. These are bad people for the USA to have around. Right.
Yeah.
So it justifies all their tactics. It justifies them bringing out all their new weapons, which they will ultimately do. But it justifies all these cop cities being built because the public doesn't know any better. The public is so misinformed about crime rates and about what cop cities are actually being built for. I mean, we went from defund the police, which should have been the rallying cry for Biden to reform things, to him giving cops more money, to all these cop cities being built.
And nobody talks about defunding the police
outrageous
at all. And you know, Democrats did this really spurious, disgusting
the
push.
Attacks on.
Yeah. When there were, you know, I always say there was one person, Cori Bush, who explicitly had defund the police as part of her platform, and she won. But the other person was here in LA, which is Kenneth Mejia, who became our LA City Comptroller. And he, you know, he does like a smaller version of what Stephen Semler does. He is always breaking down the budgets and showing where LA money is going and how it's not helping our community. And he also ran on defund the police and he won. So like, and he won against a long time LA city controller person. Oh, there I go. All right. I'll be back.
But I do question those numbers you showed earlier because of that, because I know LA was like LA alone was in the top 10, I believe, of military expenditures.
I think you're right. I know I'm frozen. I'm just going to say this one last thing, and then I'll
say something. I'll queue up a video for us to watch. You can't get rid
of me. What they do is another sort of like slimy tactic, and they divide the budget into different categories. So they will, like, if you're looking at how money is spent a certain way, it's something like 60% of the budget. But if you title it this other way, then you can say it's only 30%. Okay, I'm leaving. I'll be back. Oh Lord.
That's okay. Wait, how am I the only one there? Where'd you go?
I froze.
What?
I'm out.
But why? All right, who knows? All right, here's a little timeline that's a cross between timeline and puppets, I think.
Smash. But why? Pass. 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 Smash. Smash. Pass. Smash. Pass. Pass. I really did not mean to say smash. This is horrifying. Pass. Big pass. Pass. Smash.
I got back right in time for the smash. I like it. Sorry about that. All right. That was a good breather, right?
Yeah. So okay, let's continue with the police though. What do we got? The police, look, $689,000 tank thing. What do they need that for? What do they need that for?
I mean, it certainly isn't to, I know that's not Uvalde, but not to go in and like rescue babies who are being slaughtered by a gunman, right? Like, I mean, it is so gross to see the difference between the image they try to project and the reality of the situation.
Absolutely. Just bullshit.
Yeah, okay. So as you read the news today, remember that U.S. authorities are calling people terrorists for posting flyers, for sleeping in hammocks, and for running a bail fund. So that's about Cop City, where they barged into like a SWAT team to a bail bond, like mutual funding organization that was raising money for people who were being arrested. And they got them on RICO charges.
RICO charges for people who are trying to both save the environment, defund the police, stop Cop City,
help people get out of jail who were there, who were peacefully protesting, sitting in trees, like
even if
shot.
Even if the original people were terrorists,
right?
This is a group, which they're not. I'm just saying, let's extend some logic to them.
Yeah.
If they're terrorists, these people seeking bail funds for them are not terrorists by very nature. This is a serious infringement on our civil rights.
Yeah, like that's our constitutional right, is to be able to post bail. But they were like, oh, well, you didn't use the money. This is how, it's the same thing they just did to Donald Trump, which is hilarious, whatever. Anyway, but like, you didn't use the money the right way. They charged them with using it for food and water in addition to bail funds.
Right. So they were abetting the terrorists by providing food and water for them. Yeah.
And, we know that what's Smotrich? Is that his name? Smotrich? No, that's Itamar Ben-Gvir. Sorry. Israel's Minister of National Security now has Israeli police going and infiltrating, not infiltrating, but advising U.S. cops on how to deal, and also around the world, but how to deal with people who are protesting this genocide.
Yeah, it's as specific as possible. We've got Israel buying all of our politicians. All of our military, our police forces they have some convergence with Israeli policy, training, etc. They naturally hate college kids. I think Kimmy said it earlier. it's a formula for disaster, and that's what they want, because they want to be able to say all these protests are violent,
right,
and we need to shut them down. And then ultimately, it's not because of what's happening right now. I mean, that's part of it, but like they understand the economic conditions are pushing people to a level where they need these cop cities, because if people really figure out what's going on, and we're all figuring out what's going on, it's gonna rock their world, and they got to do what they can to slow that.
Yeah, they need all the leverage they can get to squash all of the protests that will be happening. And with the Atlanta cop city, they somehow got a vote on it, and like 70% of the city, and like hundreds of people
does not want this at all.
And then they said that the money was actually allocated to the county, not the city. And so that's why it was not, they didn't have to listen to the demands of the voters. That's how they're trying to get around it right now. So that has not been ended, even though a majority of the people in Atlanta do not want a cop city.
Yeah. So I think we should show the video of Atlanta. This is a little bit of a background on some of the Atlanta stuff, and then we'll
on cop city. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, perfect.
Atlanta is planning on building a $90 million training ground in the forest to practice urban warfare tactics. Activists are calling it Cop City and say it will harm Black people and the environment.
The facility would be a space where the police could practice tear gas explosions, bomb testing, have a shooting range, practice high-speed chases. Like, they're literally going to build a mock city of Atlanta to practice different urban warfare tactics. The purpose of this project is to be able to better surveil, better suppress, and better prevent liberation movements that directly address the exploitation that Black and working class communities are feeling.
Atlanta actually increased its police budget after Black Lives Matter protests and a movement to defund the police. More than 70% of Atlantans disapprove of Cop City. In 2021, Atlanta's population was almost 50% Black. 20% of Atlantans live in poverty.
The Atlanta police have always been antagonistic towards poor and working class people. They have been active agents of gentrification.
Cop City is proposed to be built on land that included a slave plantation and a prison farm. The construction would cut down part of the South River forest, which helps prevent flooding and protects against extreme heat. Activists against Cop City are occupying the forest, building barricades, and protesting against corporate sponsors to stop construction.
Defund the police, abolish them, and invest in the things that actually keep us safe. We've been ramping up our efforts to get folks in the community trained on things like restorative justice, on medic trainings, on de-escalation tactics, disaster relief, all the things that we know actually keep us safe when we're in crisis. And so we don't need to call the police. Folks won't feel like they need to engage 911, that we'll have those skills in our community and can meet our own needs.
You know, a lot of people pointed out, I think The Runs was somebody also today who posted that I retweeted, you know, how it started and how it's going. And it was Bernie in 2020 or 2019, you know, with like 25,000 people at a rally in Brooklyn, and today with AOC, Bernie, and Jamal Bowman, and there was like, you know, 200. I mean, it looked like a Joe Biden crowd. But I remember him being asked by, I think, Abby Phillips about racism in the US, because, you know, they were always trying to get him as like, you're this old white guy, what do you know? And he started talking about the climate, and she was like, no, Bernie, you know, like tried to bring it back to that. I was like, but it's all connected. And when you cut down trees that protect people from flooding or the sun, only in certain neighborhoods, when you build trains that are going to explode or leak their chemicals, only in the poor neighborhood, like it is all so connected. And Cop City just hits all of the points.
It does, because like you said, look, if climate change is real and climate change is real, these trees help prevent flooding to Atlanta. Like, they're protecting Atlanta, but you're so prioritizing escalating police violence, which is a non-issue. Like, crime is not an issue that you need to spend more money on. First off, all that money spent only leads to more violence. The data shows this. Like anyone actually looking at this stuff would understand the data does not support giving the police more money to solve a problem. Defund. This is another thing. Like defund the police does not mean police departments don't exist. I mean, it does to some people, but for most people, it means we outsource some of these things that the police do to groups that do it better. And we give that money instead of to the tanks and the, bulldozers and all the things wrecking homeless people and etc. to a social program that can help lift these homeless people off the street, that can treat drug offenders better with counseling and etc.
People a place
And they
to go
support
after
that.
school.
The public supports this.
Yeah. Like neighborhood areas for kids to play after school, right?
It's
all
both
the
parties. It's both parties intentionally mischaracterizing what defund stands for to justify funding police instead.
That's right. Yeah, with the help of commercial real estate lobby and all of those, all of the different people who can't wait to get their grubby paws all over taxpayer money, even though they will definitely never raise taxes on the wealthy. Instead, they'll do things like spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to catch fare evaders who, if like all fares were free, would be like, I think $140,000 in New York. I'm going to get this wrong, so I better get I don't want anybody. I want to do the real thing. Yeah, 104. Okay. New York Police Department spent $150 million to catch fare beaters who are mostly poor and working class. And that would have only cost the MTA $104,000. I mean, it is so absurd. It's like
so
our
cut and
healthcare
dry.
system. It's so clear.
And Adams knows. I mean, they all know, and they will admit that crime is down in New York and that you don't need to be doing these things, but they're worried about the perception of these things. And they're worried about the perception of these things because they realize people are recognizing their power a little bit.
Yeah.
And they have to shut that down. They have to have the big tank that rolls up and scares the public. They have to have
But why Biden stripped all of the social welfare programs that started under at the beginning of COVID, because people realized oh, you mean we can actually, halfway solve child poverty? That means we could do it all the way. We could give people free vaccines and testing and treating. Oh, then we could have free healthcare. Even though it's cheaper, but the only way to discipline labor is to make everything attached to your job. It is truly a pathology that greedy rich people have. It will just never be enough. Right now we know it's, I just heard it in LA or probably all of California, it's fire season. Did you know that was one of our 4 seasons? It's fire season now, right? So it is boiling hot in New York. One of the places that people go when it's boiling hot is the library, because it's air conditioned.
They're defunding the libraries.
They've defunded the libraries. So not only are they closed now on Sundays, but their air conditioning is broken and can't be fixed, because all of that money Adams is going to push towards their cop city that they're hoping to open either in Queens or Brooklyn.
Even while they acknowledge, if you ask them, that crime is down, even Adams admits that crime is down
because of all the money he gives to the cops.
This is all so ridiculous. And but look, in Atlanta specifically, the public is against Cop City 1,000%. They hate it. They're fighting it. It's being forced on them. It's like it's a test study in how to get around the public's opinion.
Yeah. Which is everything, right? It's our being anti-genocide happening in Israel. It's most of the country wants Medicare for all. Most of the country wants to legalize weed. Most of the country wants a Green New Deal. Most of the country wants a living wage. We are not represented on any level here in our government, ever.
Which is why stopping Cop City in Atlanta is a test case for us as well in our power. And we have to stop it. We have to. And with 69 of them popping up around the country, it needs to be clear and present and obvious to the establishment that we are not taking this shit.
Yeah, this is a great graphic. Renee Johnston, I think a lot of people, where is it? Wait a second. Oh yeah, here. Put this graphic together. These are the cop cities planned for the US. So it started out with the ones, I don't know, she wrote it all down, but basically we are now at 69 cop cities that are being built or are starting to be built, which is starving municipal budgets in order to terrorize communities. I mean, really, that's all it is. And, you know, just last month, remember Atlanta had no water. They had to boil water for a few days. You could not run your tap, but they're going to give hundreds of millions of dollars to Cop City.
I mean, when you think about, you know, most big cities, 20 to 40% of their budget is cops, right? So 20 to 40% is cops. And the data shows if you lower the budget for cops, crime goes down. So you
Absolutely.
Maybe there's a tipping point where it doesn't go down, but we're not even testing that. We're just increasing the budget. Let's just give them more money as crime is actually going down. Like it was naturally going down.
Every country, every city where economic disparity is the greatest, where income inequality is the greatest, that's where the most crime is, always. So we know the solution. You know, there was one thing.
Yeah,
it was like
equality is the solution. Sorry, but
yeah, exactly.
Not that we all have to be communist, socialist, whatever.
No, but like
you have to balance it out better. It's you're fucking up the middle class and anyone not rich, and that's where society's headed.
It is truly, you know, and I know, like, I don't want anybody to accuse me of being ableist or, you know, trying to pretend to be a medical professional. It is, I think, a brain or emotional or something disorder, a pathology that they will never have enough. It doesn't matter if you are a 400 billionaire, you still need, like, it is, you're insatiable. And if you saw, you know, the way people talk about people who are drug addicts or who are obese and they have such derision for them, and then you put like the new billionaires on the cover of magazines. I mean, it is the priorities are so messed up.
Well, and that's ultimately the problem is, I mean, the press is a huge part of the problem as always, because the press latches onto all the fear mongering crime stories. Like local press, wherever you live, they're always going to tell you about the horrible things that are happening, which allows the local police department, who is already 20 to 40% of the budget, which means they have 20 to 40% of the influence in the city, to pressure the politicians. And then their endorsement of the politicians is huge. So if you don't get the police department to endorse you, you're not going to win, because the police department's going to come out against you and say you're soft on crime. And everyone in the whole city is like, oh, crime is bad because I watch the news a lot.
Yeah.
So it's just a cycle of like it's the intersection of all this stuff that matters.
It really, it is. And gosh, I know I feel like I'm pinballing all over the place, but I think there was at the beginning, right after October 7th, there was a group in Atlanta, and I wish I knew the name of this person who was speaking, because so many people have put out videos of of this moment, but it really does sum up that what's happening there happens here, and what's happening here happens there, and how important it is for us all to realize how connected we are.
You cannot understand what's happening in Black Atlanta unless you understand what's happening in Palestine. We have a GILI program, basically a global international law enforcement exchange. They're sending local police to go train with the IDF.
We have an active exchange program with Israeli police to help train and prepare the future cadre of the police leaders.
They are exchanging knowledge. They are talking to each other. It's important that we understand what is happening down there, because the same forces over there are the same forces here that are putting us down.
I visited Israel in 2008 with the Georgia International Law Enforcement Exchange and was impressed with several practices I saw during my visit, so much so that I implemented several here in Atlanta.
These are the same people. They're exchanging knowledge. They're exchanging strategies.
Our Video Integration Center in downtown Atlanta, with more than 5,000 public and private sector cameras, is modeled after the Command and Control Center I saw in the old city of Jerusalem.
That's why we say white supremacy is global, and that's why we say white Southern colonialism, we fight against it wherever it stands. That's why we're standing for the Palestinian people. We're standing here as concerned community with people who have lost their loved ones to police brutality, saying we have lost them. We know what it means to lose children to war. We know what it means to lose our loved ones to police, and we will not have it anymore.
It's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, on all levels, but like to go from BLM and all the protesting that happened in 2020 and then to now, those protesters are still like fighting for Palestine and connecting the dots in ways that our news media won't do. And just, I'm just amazed that we let the Democrats beef up the police force and turn into cop cities. Like, what the fuck?
And those, I mean, like New York City, Atlanta, those are Democratic run cities, states. I'm sure it's going to be happening here in California. Like, it doesn't matter. And I do think it's also interesting that the police chiefs that have been profiled in this, and obviously they're police chiefs of all different races and ethnicities, sexes, all that kind of stuff. But like, there is a reason that white supremacy wants to put Black faces on their disgusting brutality towards Black and brown people.
I mean, it's so obvious, but I mean, we're two white people, so we're not leaning in on that too much. But look, it's the Kamala Harris who was tough on crime in California. She called herself the top cop in California. She was tough on crime. You know, 3 strikes laws and so many things in California that are fucked are because of her.
Yeah. And we know that one of the things she did that was the most grotesque was keep people who were up for parole in jail because we needed them to fight fires for 15 cents a day.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, not to make it about me, but like I literally worked for 2 years, 2 years ago with my boss's son who was in prison, who was a firefighter under that.
And I bet he can't get a job as a firefighter now.
No, they said they couldn't hire him. And he was like one of the most loved. He's a solid guy. I love him to death, you know?
Yeah.
Great guy. But it's all fucked. I
mean, that's why like this all, you know, this became like a huge research project for Pat and me, because we started like, you know, you start with one thing like, oh, the 13th Amendment, right? Which abolishes slavery unless it's punishment. And then all of a sudden you see like, oh, and here are the sheriff patrols. And hey, how interesting that like the US prisoners percent, like we have more people caged in our country than any other country in the world. And prison labor is rampant, which I didn't even realize until I think 2019, when we found out that Mike Bloomberg had prisoners doing robocalls for him.
Literal campaign work.
Yeah,
for the guy
they have no choice. They have like, that's like what it was.
Private prisons, the worst on the middle class, as like would have been worse than anybody, literally anybody. And the Democratic Party was prepared to endorse him if Biden couldn't do it.
And if Bernie, I mean, the whole reason he was allowed in was because they were worried that Bernie was. Remember, they changed the debate rules for him.
He had spoken at the Republican nomination. I don't know what is it, the convention, Republican convention in 2016, I think.
Yeah,
like he's as right as it gets, and the whole Democratic Party was like, if it's going to be Bernie, we're going to go for this guy because
we'd rather have a Republican billionaire.
Yeah.
And they had John Kasich. I mean, just they're so disgusting. Thank you, Oz. That's so sweet of you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, beauty and
cheers from my new beer I grabbed from my fridge.
Oh yeah, what
the
is
door
that?
Opens the right direction.
I love it.
It's amazing technology.
You did it yourself though.
I did it and I didn't have my actual tools here. So, but it took some work. I was dedicated to it. You were researching stuff for the show and I was like, I got
you gotta have my refrigerator door open the right way. I did just want to shout out Oz, his show he has a podcast. I think it's normally on Saturday evenings, but anyway, thank you so much. Cheers. That's really, really kind of you. Prison labor. Okay, so these are just a few articles that have come out just recently. So Florida loves prison labor. Most incarcerated people still work for free. They clean toilets, prep food, no pay, and the state is charging for their incarceration. It goes on, and now is when I need my readers. The 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution banned slavery or involuntary servitude except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. According to a January 2024 report, 7 states, including Florida, pay no wages at all for the majority of prison jobs. About 37% of the people of the people in the U.S. in prison or jail are Black, and 48% of prisoners serving life sentences are Black, while Black Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population. Black people in Florida are imprisoned at a rate 4.2 times higher than white people are. And as I was reading through, it was like, there was another one in Louisiana, prison labor in Louisiana, right? They have to clean up disaster sites. So here they are having to help clean up the disasters caused by the same fossil fuel companies that are destroying our climate. Also in Texas, they help bring in 90 million, prison labor helps bring in $90 million a year. And some of the work that they do, whether it is farming, agriculture, whatever, is then used by McDonald's, Whole Foods, Pizza Hut, like huge companies. I think Walmart also was one of them. The one, and this is Angola, another one, farm work in Angola, in Louisiana. These are all like in the last couple months. One of the prisoners who was interviewed, when they first brought him out to work, the work site was a cotton field on an old slave plantation. And the sheriff or the guard who is overseeing all of these Black inmates who are chained together having to pick cotton. I mean, it is just beyond anything. It's so heinous, and nobody changes anything about it.
Look, I'm not against the idea of prisoners being able to do something else that somehow expands their life or somehow does something. There's a way to make it work, but the problem is you've got private prisons that are not even beholden to anything else. It's like private torture chambers, and their incentives, because this is capitalism, their incentives are to maximize their profit. So why would they want to get their labor out early if their labor is if they're good citizens, So what's the incentivization model? Because that's a capitalist group, and under capitalism, you are always seeking to maximize profit.
Right.
What is their incentive to say, oh, Jimmy's a good guy, we should get him out early because he's not a harm to society? No, of course, they want to maximize and arrest more people and keep them in as long as possible, because it's labor that's paying the bills, that is the private prison that a lot of these politicians own fucking stock in.
100%, which is why Biden, helping write the crime bill, which he loves to take credit for, crack cocaine, which was funneled into Black neighborhoods by the CIA, then that becomes a bigger ding against them than coke, which is like a Wall Street white guy.
Yeah, the bougie drugs are okay.
Yeah. And so then you have more Black people in prison, you impoverish them, you don't fix up their schools. So there's the whole poverty to prison pipeline. You train them to be firefighters, but then even if you finally do let them go, thanks Kamala, they won't be hired in the job they were trained for, that we depended on them. Like, it is so bleak.
It's so layered with just disgusting capitalism. And back to Kamala, since you brought her up again. Yeah. I mean, at the same time, she's putting out this statement that we need this we need these firefighters, so we shouldn't let people out for marijuana convictions. Yeah. She was going on shows joking about how much she smoked weed.
Oh yeah, in college when she loved Tupac, and she was in college before Tupac.
That's a class. That's where the race thing doesn't play well, but it's what they rely on, because like, oh, well, she can't be racist again. She's not really racist. She's just a class warrior. It's where the convergence of class issues and race sometimes, it's just being used.
Yeah, it's 100%. And, I always feel like it's good for us to point out that the biggest theft, the biggest crime in our country is wage theft, which I don't know, I can't add all that up so fast, but it's about $40 billion a year. 40 billion. And all other types of those sorts of theft amount to about 11 billion. But you never hear about
Well, just to asterisk it, the ones we put our whole police force out there for are the burglary and auto theft.
Yep.
And the police won't do fucking fuck all if you get your car stolen, your catalytic converter stolen. They will not do anything.
They solve 2% of all major crimes, as we all know. 2%. Yep.
They are there to protect the rich and break up protesters and kick homeless people, make it more, tenable visually
capital,
to
property,
see,
capital.
move the homeless somewhere else, which is more and more going to be their job, because
we're all going to be homeless because nobody can afford a home.
Yeah. So
the other major crime, and Alec Karakatsanis is another great journalist, or I don't know what he exactly considers himself, but he does a lot of work on policing in the U.S. and the abolish movement. But the $50 billion wage theft per year doesn't even compare to the $1 trillion tax evasion epidemic. And that's Bloomberg reporting on the $1 trillion tax cheating, right? So like that's all they do is.
It's not some lefty conspiracy. Yeah. It's just known that all this tax theft is happening.
Where's the tear gas for those motherfuckers? Jesus.
Tear gas? I got something better than tear gas, but
I got your tear gas right here.
Hey, should we show the good people in Atlanta?
Yeah.
I think, somebody out there is doing the right thing.
All right.
We construct barricades to keep police out, police, construction, contracting companies. You hear gunshots all the time because there's a police firing range in this. Yeah, you can hear those shots right there.
Occupying this forest is how activists are resisting the construction of a $90 million state-of-the-art police training center protesters call Cop City. The facility will be developed on one of the largest green spaces in Southeast Atlanta, which has a history of oppression.
All of it. It will be clear-cut. They cannot wait. They just want to go in and bulldoze everything and then write the history the way that they want to write it.
The fate of the forest is up in the air as the police and forest defenders both refuse to back down.
Those people, to me, through their acts, are actually domestic terrorists.
Major corporations are pouring millions into this project, financially pressuring politicians to build Cop City.
Why did you vote to approve this facility?
Surrounding neighborhoods that are more than 75% Black say their concerns have been silenced.
Our opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't count.
It's disrespect. And that's what folks who live here ought to be just enraged about.
So that's actually part of like a 25-minute documentary that's really great. But you look at that and you're like, okay, you can't protest, that's criminalized. You can't vote your way out because 70% of Atlanta shows up to vote and says they don't want it. That doesn't count. So, they leave you no options. Like, what is the option? How do we fix this?
That's the ultimate problem of our show, is that like, I wish we could lead people to the solution, but the solution is we get mad enough and violent enough in a way that's, I don't know. Something has to get their attention, and we have to. Yeah. No, by violent I meant like our rhetoric is loud and angry,
loud and clear.
But something has to hit their pocketbooks to change the fundamental dynamics of no politician can support this cause, or They're not reelected. They're not going to get another job. They're not going to get a lobbyist job. Their life is miserable if you support this. And that truly has to happen, or we're not changing things.
I agree. And, I wonder how much it registered with AOC and Bernie today or yesterday. I guess it was yesterday, to see the difference. Like,
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, it's okay. I mean, I don't know. Like, nothing seems to matter. Like, if they're going to still be reelected, sort of, and still maintain their careers, because as long as you don't, rub the people in power too much the wrong way, you won't have the AIPAC money against you. And so you'll probably be okay. Jamal Bowman is about to lose, probably. And, I just saw, and I kind of can't believe this. I mean, I can, but, Daniel Marins is a journalist who was sort of sympathetic to the Bernie movement. I mean, I was never like full-throatedly loving him, but like he was what they would consider one of their more liberal, left, progressive journalists for, I think Huffington Post is his main site. And today he had a piece talking about how basically Bowman did this to himself because of the defund the police, talking about ceasefire and the genocide in Gaza, and pulling the alarm bell. And so now that somehow justifies, in Daniel Marin's mind, I mean, it's what's going to happen, but like a real journalist might describe it differently, with George Latimer, who's like this AIPAC-backed corporate stooge, and so that's like the left-leaning. I know he's not for all of us, but like according to most normies out there, he's the guy who was a little bit more pro-labor, pro-Bernie, and he's saying like, Bowman kind of did it to himself.
To me, Bowman's personal campaign falls on the entire Bernie movement, and Bernie and AOC and the squad are why Bowman is going to lose, even though he's more them than they are now.
Yeah.
But he's going to lose. Maybe he wins. I don't know. But
right.
Think of how much money Bowman would have raised nationally for his local election if these people didn't abandon us and disappoint us on the left. Like AOC, her rock star, like the funniest part of that whole clip, the whole campaign for Bowman. I mean, other than him rapping and all that silly shit, but whatever, that might play. But AOC coming out like a rock star in front of 200 people. Oh, she's like trying to hype up the karaoke party or something. And it's awful. And
it's so embarrassing. It's such an act. Really,
I remember like going to Bernie in San Francisco rally. It was like 10 to 15,000 people. You waited forever. I had a VIP thing because I was in with Roseanne DeMoro, the nurses union, the head of the nurses union. And I got to meet Nina Turner there. Nina Turner came out just to say hi to me. And like just how epic all that was as a rock star kind of persona. Like I don't care about any of that stuff. But I'm just saying,
like
the public
earned.
It was
talking about things people wanted to feel. Yeah.
It was like the 60s. It was a movement. People were there really, truly supporting this cause. And then to see her, Bernie, AOC, 200 people. I mean,
I made that number up. I don't know, but it looked.
No,
it looked like I don't even know.
Whatever number it was, it was massively disappointing.
Like you really
showed up.
Yeah.
And think of the national funding he would have had if Bernie and AOC from 2020 showed up.
Yep.
That movement was still alive and kicking, and everybody believed in him. Bowman would have $20 million from the internet in no time.
The worst part about all of this is Democrats totally did their job. I mean, they did exactly what they are paid to do. They crushed Bernie's movement, and whatever anybody thinks about Bernie now or then or whatever, but like there were millions of us who were unified in wanting to work for something better. And I think, millions of us still want something better, but it's a different kind of, it's not a movement right now because we're not unified. Like we're all over the place, right? They crushed it and they got the people to fall in line, and they don't care if Bowman loses to Latimer or if Like none of it matters to them. Doesn't matter, actually. None of it matters. It's so sad. Okay, I think we should spin the wheel because I think I have managed to, as is my want, bring everybody down. So I'm gonna add this to the stage and let's hope something fun comes up. All right.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, look at you. Pat, don't say we don't need you. I'm removing it, right? Because we only have this other one, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have more others, but there's just one. Let's just do this.
Okay.
Sorry, it's all raccoon here.
Okay.
This is a raccoon that lives with another raccoon in somebody's dresser. Yeah, set it up. Lila likes that. Dresser cam.
Oh my God, it's still uncomfortable.
Living the good life. Whoa, what are you doing there, buddy?
Everybody deserves a little fun.
What if you could? That's all right. I don't know.
That's awesome. I love that.
They're cute.
That's very
I love
cute.
raccoons.
All right. Is there anything else? I mean, we do have a video on mini Gaza, which to me is horrifying, but
Yes. Okay. I don't think we should quit Israel just yet because
Okay.
I think mini Gaza does expose like this. These are the groups training us, and they have a mini Gaza to train their police force how to suppress people, and that's exactly what Atlanta City is.
people, they dominate and
Cop City.
occupy.
Yeah.
Have you heard about Mini Gaza? It's basically a ghost town in the middle of the desert where Israeli soldiers train for urban warfare. The simulation city, which is located in the south of Israel and costs tens of millions of dollars, by the way, has 600 buildings, including schools and mosques that even broadcast the call to prayer. Soldiers there carry out combat exercises, usually down narrow streets with walls covered with messages like Free Gaza and portraits of Palestinian fighters, not painted by Palestinians though, but all painted by the Israeli army's official graffiti artist. But while this is happening in the Middle East, you might not be surprised to learn that US law enforcement officers are also being trained in these camps in Israel. According to Jewish Voice for Peace and researching the American-Israeli alliance, the exchange facilitates a transfer of tactics including police violence and control, mass surveillance, racial profiling, and even the suppression of protests and dissent. Since 2017, there has been a huge push to end what is being called a deadly exchange, but there's been little success with that. So, with the spotlight currently on police brutality at student encampments across the US, we're seeing more and more people calling for the divestment in Israeli military training. By deploying the same tactics, critics could say it's one and the same institution.
The other thing is just how complicit our media is, right? Like you see where that occupation of the American Mind documentary that we talked about a few weeks ago and the falling in line with all of corporate media on creating this narrative that all Palestinians are terrorists, Palestinians are Hamas, not talking about anything that happened before October 7th, still rolling out the rape propaganda that has been completely debunked, still talking about Palestinians using their own people as human shields, even though, Israel's been caught on tape so many times, including just a couple days ago, using Palestinians civilians and children, but civilians as human shields, and having like tunnels under Tel Aviv, having stockpiles of weapons inside of crowded city areas in Tel Aviv. But nobody would think it was justified to bomb all of Tel Aviv. But like, you can do that. That's what they use as their justification, because maybe Hamas built a tunnel under a hospital, which of course then is completely forgotten about or disproven. So, but like, if we had a true fourth estate, they wouldn't be allowed to get away with this. So it's like, again, just bringing back the intersectionality of all of this. Like, it is truly a crime that our journalists, fourth estate, whatever, in this country are so corrupted by the people who own the stations they work for.
That's really it, because like, they are the people outside of ourselves. They are the next level of protection. Like, we can protect ourselves, but it's really hard to do because they're misinforming so many other people that would be allies with us.
That's right.
On a daily basis. I mean, you got
Democracy
these
dies in
like,
darkness.
what that video showed to me is like, you know, the Gaza little mini cities, they are built to desensitize their trainees. The that's graffiti is like, that's the point. It's like, they're saying bad things against you, shoot them anyway. You know, and and these are the people training our forces, and these are the way our cop cities are being built, because they are advising us on how to build our cop cities,
right, to desensitize the police against the communities they're supposed to be protecting and serving.
100%. Who don't want them there, who voted against them, literally voted against them, said, get the fuck out of our town. And they pulled some whoop-de-whoop with the law to be like, we're going to be here anyway. Sorry you voted against it, but
and now we hate you more.
We hate you, and sorry about all the climate damage, and you're probably going to die in a flood. But
or a mass shooting that we won't even enter a building for with our big old tank. No, it is so just vile. All right, what do you think? I did just want to say, because I think this is really interesting, that it's not even that it's that dangerous a job, even though we didn't pull the video of the guy who goes around training police around the country, basically saying like, every day it's life or death, every day that you come home alive, which of course, like, for all of us, you want your people to come home alive, but like, making it feel like you're always putting your body on the line. This is 2022 is the most recent fatality rates that were organized.
I'm looking for cops on there. Where are the cops?
Agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting were the #1 most dangerous jobs. Mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction, transportation, construction, wholesale trade. You know, that's Amazon and Walmart.
I have to think that being an electrician is more dangerous than being a cop.
I mean, it seems like everything is. And by the way, in 2021, the highest killer of cops in the US, COVID, because they didn't want to wear a mask. COVID was the #1 cause of fatality. So ACAB, baby. ACAB.
Look, you keep trying to make me root for COVID. I'm not.
All right. Does that end the deep dive sad part of our show, so we can move on to the lefty LOL?
It feels right. It feels like we should spin the wheel and get on to the comedy.
Sure. Yeah. Right? What was I thinking? Okay. Are you putting it up? Am I? Okay, you did. There we go. Lots of buttons.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Since we are going to comedy, I will not put a funny one up, but one that I appreciated.
Right.
And tell me if I showed this before. I really have no memory after the show. Like, did we show it? Because I've already watched the clip several times.
Well, the funny thing also, I just have to say, is we talk about this all the time. And a lot of times you have to show something when I freeze and leave. So I don't know. So we're like stranded here. But okay, go ahead.
So this is stop motion stuff. Did anyone stop me now?
Let's see.
All right.
That's my favorite one ever.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, I love that so much. I wanted
Good.
to keep going on. That was
So I'm
good.
glad that I didn't show it before. I prefer the dog smash. Should we show dog smash again?
I think I already deleted it from as we go, I try to delete stuff so that I don't get frozen out. I feel like that's part of the issue with me. That was really good. I love that. Okay, so are we moving on to our this was a really fun discovery for us. I did not know this comedian. I know you're going to do your intro, but I also just want to say that we'll be stopping. And sorry, I hate to stop a comedian's flow. That sucks, but
Well,
I'm
you know,
worried that we're
honestly-
going to get shut down.
Oh, well, and we tagged it with all the, fair use
fair
things,
use,
whatever.
yeah.
But she talks pretty quick. I think she would actually be a little funny if she slowed it down. Like if she slowed down like 5%, she'd be funnier. But she's really great. And I don't know. We both laughed at it. So we all deserve a laugh. So here we go.